Welcome to Inland Edition, where this season we're having conversations with people who represent nonprofit organizations working to make the Inland Empire a better place. My name is Joe Richardson. I'm a local attorney, Inland Empire resident, and your host. And today we're going to chat with James Moses, Regional Director of the Child Care Resource Center. CCRC has been serving children, families, and child care providers since 1976. The organization assists with issues like finding and selecting childcare and childcare financial assistance for families. In CCRC, James Moses found an organization that aligned with his values, and he has spent the better part of 3 decades forging relationships with families, lawmakers, and community leaders. He specializes in building relationships with legislators specifically to help find eligible families and provide them with services and support. He firmly believes families, children, and caregivers are a cornerstone of our community. Let's meet him and learn more about how the Child Care Resource Center affects our community on a daily basis. So we're happy to welcome from the Child Care Resource Center, the Regional Director, James Moses. How are you, sir?
I'm great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Great. Now, so can I take from your jacket that we can call it CCRC?
Yeah, CCRC is the acronym, and we're known, by many folks as CCRC.
Now, how long has the CCRC been there?
So CCRC's been in existence for nearly 50 years. So it started with a group of women who were doing some volunteer work in LA County back in 1974. But initially kind of formally founded in 1975 and then funded in 1976. And so they've been working in LA County since then, but we moved into San Bernardino County back in 2013.
Oh, wow. So talk about the mission. What does CCRC do?
So our mission is to cultivate child, family, and community well-being, and we do that with a lot of collaboration and partnership with a lot of entities. A core area of our services is around serving children and families, helping them pay for childcare and providing subsidies. We also provide a great deal of support to childcare providers, training, coaching, mentoring. So that started out as our core services, and over time we expanded a great deal as we've seen that families needed much more than we were offering just through childcare. So then we began to expand, look at what the needs of the communities were. So it looks a little bit different in each community because each community is different, but we're always striving to see in partnership what kind of things can we do in specific communities to really meet the needs of that community and the children and families in particular.
Right. Tell us about your specific function as Regional Director.
So my role as Regional Director, I work in our Government Relations Department, which is part of our Office of Strategic Engagement. So my role is to especially build relationships here in San Bernardino County with our local, state, and federal elected officials to share with them what the needs of our community are, what kind of work we, along with partners, are doing in the areas of child care, child well-being, to ensure that they understand, one, what the needs are, what CCRC as well as partners are capable of doing if we had adequate funding to provide services to children and families. So a lot of relationship building in that area. And then also strategically looking at how can we develop partnerships, how do we draw down additional funding that allow us to better serve children and families. And sometimes we can do that ourselves, but often we need collaborations and partnerships with other organizations to make sure that we really maximize the opportunities we have to serve children and families.
How did your own process, give us some information about your background and how, was there an aha moment for you in terms of being in nonprofit leadership? Had you done this for a while? You know, those types of things. How did you come across being at CCRC?
Prior to CCRC, I'd spent 24 years in local government work. So I worked for the county of San Bernardino for about 17 years in one of their departments, and started at the ground level and worked up into a program manager role there. And then I went to work for the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. I worked there for about 7 years. And we went through some challenges within the organizations, nothing bad, but that challenges that had me really seeking and thinking about something different. And I think the opportunity to connect with CCRC came about when CCRC had an opportunity to take over many of the child care programs in San Bernardino County. So I became connected with our current president, as well as a former vice president, got to know them. Really, we were well aligned in terms of how we wanted to serve people. I think our personal missions and visions for how we wanted to live and how we wanted to serve matched what the organization was doing. And it just felt like an incredible opportunity for me to maybe shift from local government work and come to work in a nonprofit. At the time, we were considerably smaller. And so the thought of being more nimble, and I think we still are more nimble. Right. Certainly, but as we've grown, that becomes a little more complex, certainly. But the opportunity to work in a little bit smaller environment, be a little bit more nimble, really have that mission be really so customer and family focused was enticing for me.
Tell us about some of the specific programs that you're really proud of.
So, proud of all the programs we run, and we run a great deal of programs. So I mentioned earlier, at the core, we provide child care financial assistance to families. So the bulk of our funding, probably around 60% of our funding, is to fund child care financial assistance. And then in conjunction with that, we do a lot of work through a department we call Resource and Referral, where we help families find child care providers. So we help them understand the different types of child care providers, what might be the best fit for their family and their child based on their needs, and we make the connection with them about the resources that are available to them. I mentioned that over time, we realized that the financial assistance and working with providers, as great as that is, that families needed more. And so over time, we began to look at other ways we might help those families. And so we began to develop programs, or home visitation programs, and we offer parent engagement, parent training programs. We have programs that are focused on the child, a lot of story times and literacy programs. More recently, and COVID, I think, shined a light on this a little bit, but we saw that more and more children and families had not issues, but needed more help, related to mental health. With COVID, we had isolation issues. And so shortly before COVID, we began to we created a department for family well-being, where we started to look at how we serve families in a greater way. So recently, we just earned a grant through the Office of Child Abuse Prevention, where we'll be serving pregnant or parenting moms who have a history of substance abuse. So we'll help them navigate services to ensure that if they're pregnant moms, their babies are born healthy and well, that if they need additional services to solidify their family and to benefit their family, then we're going to make those connections and we're going to provide navigation to those resources. So we saw expansion in that area. We've seen our early childhood education, our child care workforce need a lot of support, and we've always supported the workforce, but as we've grown, we've built out a new workforce development department that's focused specifically on workforce development around early childhood and child care, also around home visitation. We look at a lot of those things. In our family well-being department that I mentioned, we have developed and partnered with Loma Linda here in San Bernardino County, with Loma Linda and First 5 San Bernardino, to offer developmental screenings for children in our program. So one of the things we're finding is many young children aren't screened for developmental screenings. And so often, if they have developmental delays, they're not identified, and we're not connecting them to additional resources to help them at the youngest ages where we can have the greatest impact. So we began to look at different ways we can expand to better serve families. And those are, that's not everything, but those are a few things that we've been doing.
When I was in high school, I used to have a English teacher who, for every story, she said there's a dramatic irony. Seems like this, some aspect, but it's actually this way. So here's a dramatic irony that I want to talk about. The notion that you would get the impression looking through the window at CCRC and its imprint and its size that you have everything that ideally you would need, and that on a larger standpoint, from a macro standpoint, that the Inland Empire has all the resources that it needs, given its growth, given its diversity, given how spread out it is. But that's not really the case, is it?
No, it's not. I am more familiar with the needs of San Bernardino County, but often the needs in San Bernardino and Riverside County are similar. There's a lot of similarities, and we've been underserved in the Inland Empire here for a long time.
Right.
And so even though we are a fairly large organization, the reach, it's just not there. I think earlier I said we serve about 75,000 kids, and families each month. So in San Bernardino County, when you look at the 0 to 13 population of kids, we have somewhere between 400,000 and 500,000 kids. Probably 200,000 or more have all parents in the home working, and we're only serving and helping about 30,000 of those families with childcare. So you can see that, we're a term that's used in our field a lot is a childcare desert. Mm-hmm. So a childcare desert is an area that has more than 3 kids for every childcare space that we have. In San Bernardino County, we are closer to 11 or 12 children for every childcare space. That's 11 or 12 children who we know need childcare services. So we're terribly underserved in that way. And, recently we worked with the departments at the state level to change how they approach funding our programs. Largely the Inland Empire wasn't getting really a fair share of the funding when you think about how underserved we were. Yep. And so through advocacy work, that funding mechanism was changed, and that really benefited Riverside and San Bernardino counties over the last few years, where we've seen a greater share of funding for child care financial assistance and subsidies.
Tell us about, and I think we've led into it pretty well, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis, your organization?
I think some of the big challenges we face as an organization, and some of these are specific to us, but some are, specific to the field and how we're going to serve children and families. So I think one is the child care providers. We've done a lot of work to increase reimbursement rates for child care providers. That's been a good thing, but that hasn't equated to increased wages in a lot of spaces. So the wages that early childhood child care staff are paid is a challenge for our field as a whole. We have a huge teacher shortage right now, so we're struggling to bring teachers into the field, and the competitive wages, many of our programs are paying wages that are similar to what an adult could go get at a fast food, the Amazon, warehouses, those type of warehouses. And of course, we've seen an increase in wages for fast food, also an increase in wages for folks in the medical field, which, we wouldn't say that that's not worthy. Those are worthy things. It does create a little bit of a challenge for our field. For CCRC, I think challenges is some of the challenges we're facing is just trying to draw down new and additional fundings to allow us to provide some services where we see gaps in services for families. So a lot of that is serving the whole child, the whole family. So it's around those mental health issues. It's around workforce issues, home visiting, really coming into families' homes where they invite that, and really helping them understand about the development of their child and what kind of things they can do in the home to benefit that, kind of helping them become their child's first teacher, if you will. So we see gaps in some of those areas, and we're working with a lot of partners here in San Bernardino County specifically to look at how we bring more home visiting funding, how we bring more mental health, especially early childhood mental health funding into the county to serve children and families.
I'm sure that what you do is not easy, but it sounds like a purpose and a mission that's very easy to be married to. So tell me give me a success story or two that kind of reminds, in a tough moment, like why you do what you do.
I think there are several. Sometimes because my role's shifted and I'm not engaged day to day with the families, it's changed. But I still get to see families and on a weekly basis, and I get to hear their stories of how the child care, they just recently got into child care, and the fact that we're able to pay for the child care for their two kids, what that's doing in terms of putting better and higher quality food on the table, allowing them to spend money on clothing and other necessity items. So those things keep you motivated. I think on the advocacy policy side, we've been working with legislators, and our San Bernardino County legislators have been key to this. It started several years ago with Senator Connie Leyva. It's now, Assembly Member Eloise Gomez-Reyes took it on last year along with Senator Monique Limon. But we've increased child care reimbursement rates a great deal over the last 4 or 5 years. So we're finally getting to a place where folks are understanding the cost of quality care and how much money and how much of an investment that's going to be. So I think that's a win that was beneficial, that while we still need to bring in new providers, the hope is that by starting to understand the value they bring to the table, for starting to compensate them from a program level at a rate that allows them to provide quality care, we're hopeful that more and more providers will remain in the field and continue providing those services. So that's been a big win. Along with those reimbursement rates, you talked earlier about how expensive childcare is, right? So parents have what we call family fees that they have to pay, and based on their income, they could have a small family fee. California just recently really took a huge step in this area to reduce the family fees. So families on our programs that are receiving financial assistance now don't have to pay more than 1% of their income towards family fees. So the federal requirement or recommendation is no more than 7%. So California's really taken a leap there and over and above, and a lot of that was because of our local legislators and the advocates here locally that helped do that. So we're proud of that work that's moving things forward. And every year we're looking at partnerships with our legislators to look at what kind of things can we do to make things better in our communities. And we're blessed that we have legislators who care about the work we're doing here, and we have a lot of wonderful advocates and organizations that are trying to look at how we improve to maximize what we provide for children and families in our communities.
And speaking of folks that are, in line and receive wonderful services and that help to give those services at your organization, let's hear from both a caregiver as well as a parent receiving services.
So my name is Beatrice, and I have 3 children. Well, Eliana, Liam, and Gianna. We're here for the playgroup, so the kids can have fun with other kids and learn. They love, they say, oh, we're gonna go see our friends. And they love to learn, they love to sing and dance. I think that's the part that they love the most, it's dancing. And my kids love to draw and paint. I'm homeschooling my kids, and so it allows them to socialize with other children and just have fun. And because they don't have that opportunity to go to school. I mean, they do have the opportunity, but I choose to homeschool. And it allows them to see the same people frequently and get to know them because we see them for 4 weeks straight, and sometimes a lot of those family come back.
I love my friends.
My name is Celia Toman. I have 4 kids. I have been with CCRC for about 8 years. My oldest was 2. She's now 10. But since then, I've had 3 more. I'm at home all day with kids. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overstimulated. Sometimes I need to talk to other adults, or sometimes, like, with parents, we're still trying to navigate, like, just parenthood. So there's a parent cafe that I come to, and it was a lot of networking, I would say. Yeah, so we enjoyed it, and they gave us a lot of resources. So a lot of resources. I actually did, when I started, it was childcare. I came for my childcare licensing. When I had my oldest, I was working, but I wanted to stay home. But I wanted to find something that I could do at home, like to bring in income, and that's where childcare came in. And when I looked it up, it was saying, Childcare Resource Center. And then when I called, I came in, and I actually took some classes. And it was nice. They were taking care of the kids while we were being taken care of. My list of what people watching my kids is very tiny. So when we came here, what I'm looking for and the boxes that they met was that they're very attentive. They always had an activity for the kids. And they did a book. My kindergartner, we didn't even do books yet, but she was so excited to share with me of a story she did. And the ladies were actually able to help her, help her write it out, write it for her. And she just drew the pictures. I would ask, how was the style? How was the lady? Were they helpful? And they said, oh, she was so nice. She was asking me about, my favorite, they love Pokemon. My favorite Pokemon, and she told me her favorite Pokemon. So I think I enjoyed it, I enjoyed it because my kids were happy, so it made me happy.
My name is Cassandra Ward. I've been in for 5 years, and I've been a child development specialist 1. I get to work with families, young children, providers, and just a community event, so it's a little bit of everything I enjoy doing. One of the biggest things I learned in school while studying childhood development is that the family, the home life, plays a big role in the life of the child. It's not just the child, because they're only in your custody. They're only with you for a certain hours of the day, but they go back to their family. So if we can focus on the whole family and get the whole family the help and support they need, that's ultimately going to help the child the greatest. We have parent cafes where it's not a class, but it's parents coming out with other parents and families learning from each other. We have facilitators that are experts on the matter, but they're there more to lead the conversation rather than teach. That's one of our most popular things. We have a lot of families that return to that often. We also have what we call play groups, where the family, the provider, the parent, the grandparent, the nanny, whoever it is that has the child, they come out and we teach them child development with play. So the kids come, they have story crafts, we get down on the ground and play with them, but it's more of you're with the kids instead of the kids are just playing by themselves and you're watching. You're interacting with them, you're helping them learn, share, all that is hands-on with them rather than just the kids by themselves. And then we have a lot of distributions with diapers, supplies, anything that parents and providers could need. And for anything else, you can call in, and if we don't have it, we'll get you in contact with the person or the organization that does. And our drive-up distribution started with diapers, PPE supplies, and those type of things, and always some type of bag of fruit or vegetables. It could be a variety of different things. You just register and then come during your time, pop your trunk, and we give you all the free stuff. In my position, we get to make a lot of phone calls and talk to a lot of people, which means we engage with a lot of people that we have helped. And we get a lot of phone calls from people that need help. And being that person on the other end of the phone that's able to have the answer, have the solution, be able to get them to the right person that they need, be able to fill that request then and there, that's it does something on the inside to you. I love being the person that gets to help families in need.
So give us some homework. How do people follow up and find out more about your organization?
So I think probably the 2 easiest ways, the first would be go to the website, which is www.ccrcca.org. So the website, everything we've talked about, they can find information about all the programs we've talked about here. For those that are less likely to go to a website, they could call us and share what their needs are, and we'll get them referred. And that phone number is 1-866 6, 7, 4 kids.
Oh, wow.
So they can reach us either way. And kind of the goal for us is to create as many linkages and connections to the community as possible so that they can get connected to us in whatever way makes the most sense for them. So some of them go to the website, they put in applications electronically, but some prefer, a personal help with that. They want to come into the office. They want someone to walk them through. And so our goal is to try to meet the children and the families where they are, provide them what they need to be as successful as they can be.
So, James Moses, Regional Director of CCRC, thank you so much for being on Inland Edition.
Well, thank you. Appreciate being here. Appreciate the opportunity to share the wonderful work our team's doing and look forward to ways that we can benefit the children and families in our community. So thank you.
Once again, another wonderful organization in the Inland Empire doing great work. Make sure you watch episodes on YouTube that you haven't seen. Let everyone else know. And let's continue highlighting people that are doing wonderful things for our Inland Empire area. And we'll do it one conversation at a time. Until then, Joe Richardson at Inland Edition, signing off.